Hey, what's going on, y'all? How y'all doing? Um, we're gonna do a video about the vice presidential debate. This is going to be video one of multiple videos for the vice president's debate, and our objective here is to listen at the debate and find out if it's mistruth, if it's lies. Kind of think about it as fact check. I don't like calling it fact checking. I call it receipt hunting to make sure people are actually on point with their ideas and talking points. And I think it's very important because we need to understand what the potential, potential president would be. Yeah, I'm not saying that Joe Biden's going to die or Trump's going to die, but these people are next in line for the presidency. So we need to make sure that these guys and gals are, are steeped in facts and truth and logic. So that's the reason for doing this video, to hold these folks accountable. So before we get started, though, if you'd like to support my work, I'm sorry. If you'd like to support my work and the work of the Principled Statesman and a Black Patriot Media Group and Conservative Enclave, we do have a few options for you that you can contribute. We have a PayPal option, a Patreon option, and the Patreon option gets you, monthly access to the exclusive behind the scenes content that I do, like legislative bills. I break them down and give you the laws that they affect, etc. There's also an exclusive podcast on there called The Constitutionalist Quill, which I break down all the articles and the amendments of the United States Constitution and the history behind those. And that's always great stuff to learn. And there's a buy me a coffee option. You can just throw in a chip in a couple bucks every now and again, or have it on a monthly subscription, whatever. And again, I greatly appreciate all the support you have already given me, and the future supporters. I appreciate you for supporting my work. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get to the action, and let's have some fun.
Senator Harris, the coronavirus is not under control. Over the past week, Johns Hopkins reports that 39 states have had more COVID cases over the past 7 days than in the week before. 9 states have set new records. Even if a vaccine is released soon, the next administration will face hard choices. What would a Biden administration do in January and February that a Trump administration wouldn't do? Would you impose new lockdowns for businesses and schools and hotspots? A federal mandate to wear masks? You have 2 minutes to respond without interruption.
Thank you, Susan. Well, the American people have witnessed what is the greatest failure of any presidential administration in the history of our country. And here are the facts. 210,000 dead people in our country in just the last several months. Over 7 million people who have contracted this disease. 1 in 5 businesses closed.
Check it out, fam. Granted, those numbers she mentioned is correct. She's also being disingenuous when she mentions those numbers, especially 1 in 5 businesses are closing. I mean, really, what are you supposed to do during a pandemic? First of all, again, the president and the coronavirus task force is only supposed to give guidance. The governors ended up shutting them down, which we know, going back and looking at it, the governors started scaling back before Trump really said anything about what types of measures to take. And those governors, I applaud 100% because they're doing their job. They're doing exactly what they're supposed to do as independent states of the union. So let's get back to the video and let's fact check some more.
We're looking at frontline workers who have been treated like sacrificial workers. We are looking at over 30 million people who in the last several months had to file for unemployment. And here's the thing. On January 28th, the vice president and the president were informed about the nature of this pandemic. They were informed that it's lethal in consequence, that it is airborne, that it will affect young people, and that it would be contracted because it is airborne. And they knew what was happening, and they didn't tell you.
All right, fam. So Kamala Harris claims in this clip, this last clip, that the coronavirus is actually airborne, and they were warned it was airborne. Now, is that actually true? Well, personally, it's a mixed thing, right? Because the CDC at first said it's not airborne, it's not person-to-person transmission. Then all of a sudden, now it is airborne, and there's a person-to-person transmission. So really, it's a back and forth deal, right? So I did a little bit of research, and I looked up some doctors, some consensus on what is the coronavirus actually airborne. And technically speaking, it is not airborne. See, let me show you real quick. According to this on WebMD, is the coronavirus airborne? Answer: the coronavirus is not airborne like tuberculosis, measles, or smallpox, for example, which can circulate in the air. Transmission of COVID-19 occurs primarily through respiratory droplets, which can spread the virus and can cause infection in others. It can be transmitted through airborne route, but the extent to which this occurs in natural conditions and how much this contributes to the pandemic are controversial, which they are exactly correct, because droplets can only go so far unless you're literally sneezing on people, right? But people aren't sneezing on people like that very often, very seldom. They go, achoo, you're not sneezing on your kids or your grandparents and stuff like that. And that's usually a direct dispersal, right, when that happens. So that is kind of a mixture, and it's deceiving, right, at best, on how they're presenting and how people interpret what airborne is, right? So, yeah, with that, let's get back over to the video here real quick, and let's listen in some more. Let's see if we can pick up some more information out of this thing here, and let you know if it's true or false.
Can you imagine if you knew on January 28th, as opposed to March 13th, what they knew, what you might have done to prepare? They knew, and they covered it up. The president said it was a hoax.
All right, fam, here's another one of those things that is completely distorted and misleading everyone in believing, right? We know that Donald Trump and the coronavirus team, at that point, it wasn't formed, obviously, but on January 28th, we knew that briefings happened and saying, hey, this virus is spreading. No one really knew the lethality of this virus because China, again, was withholding information. It's documented by the WHO. They didn't know the lethality of this virus. So how are we to react, to this particular thing? But what Donald Trump didn't do is sit on his hands like they claim he did, right? She's saying we're clear February 13th and all these dates past the point, but we're going to put her in check real quick, because we're going to see here where the president signed an executive order to suspend the entry as immigrants and non-immigrants of persons who pose a risk of transmitting the 2019 novel coronavirus. And you can see the executive order for yourself, people. I mean, and you see the date, January 31st. And on January 31st, Trump declared the national emergency for the coronavirus. Because if you remember, if you go forward at the State of the Union on February 2nd, he talked about we're monitoring the coronavirus and it's looking to be serious. He had already shut travel in and out. Granted, there had people had already came in, right? Because out of the 9 out of the 11 cases of coronavirus, 7 to 11 people, or somewhere in number that figures like 7, 11, or 9 of 11. 9 of those people came from Wuhan. All right. and the other two got transmitted somehow or another up in Kings County, Washington, which is Seattle area, right? And that's where we had that first big spread in that nursing home outbreak, right? So what she's saying is very misleading, and she's not telling you the full scope of what was happening. I mean, things were shut down on 31st, and a national public health emergency was declared on the 31st. And, you know, he didn't know exactly what we're looking at. We just knew it was some sort of virus that was coming, you know, et cetera. So we can't fault people, obviously, for, you know, what they do at that moment when they don't have all the information. I mean, again, even the WHO had said that China was not forthcoming with information too. So that should say a lot, right? But anyways, the other thing I want to dispel also, she said Donald Trump called this thing a hoax. Here we have it. We have an article, and I don't use fact checks, but this was probably the best thing that I saw. And they were saying that Democrats are saying it's a hoax. And you can see Trump's quote, February 28th. Now, the Democrats are politicizing the coronavirus. Democrats are politicizing the coronavirus. You know that, right? Coronavirus, they're politicizing it. We did one of the great jobs. You say, how's President Trump doing? They go, oh, not good, not good. They have no clue. They don't have any clue. They can't even count their votes in Iowa. They can't even count. Now they can't count their votes. One of my people came up to me and said, Mr. President, they tried to beat you on Russia. That didn't work out too well. They couldn't do it. They tried the impeachment hoax. That was on a perfect conversation. They tried anything. They tried it over and over. They tried doing it since you got in. It's all turning. They lost. It's all turning. Think of it. Think of it. And this is their new hoax, right? And he wasn't referring to the coronavirus in this quote, but see, Democrats took it and ran with it. You can see here, I'm not going to read this part, but you can see that for yourself and read that for yourself. And he clarified his statement, but yet the Democrats keep running with this hoax narrative. Flat out, in this particular case, that on her behalf is a flat out lie. It's a flat out lie. And it's documented. So let's keep going in this vice president's debate with me here. Let's catch some more whoopsies.
They minimize the seriousness of it. The president said, you're on one side of his ledger if you wear a mask, you're on the other side of his ledger if you don't. And in spite of all of that, today they still don't have a plan. They still don't have a plan. Well, Joe Biden does. And our plan is about what we need to do around a national strategy for contact tracing, for testing, for administration of the vaccine, and making sure that it will be free for all.
I'm not even going to waste no time with you on this one, fam. This is some straight up authoritarian, totalitarian nonsense that she's talking about. Contact tracing, skip tracing, whatever tracing you want to do. No, people don't want to be tracked. Period. They don't want to be tracked. See, this is what you're going to get, right? You're going to get these mandates to slap down on you and take away your freedom and liberty and all that good stuff. This is where this leads. This is exactly where this leads. I'm going to cut out. We're going to finish the rest of this video, though.
Vice President Pence, more than 210,000 Americans have died of COVID-19 since February. The U.S. death toll as a percentage of our population is higher than that of almost every other wealthy nation on earth. For instance, our death rate is 2.5 times that of Canada next door. You head the administration's coronavirus task force. Why is the U.S. death toll as a percentage of our population higher than that of almost every other wealthy country? And you have 2 minutes to respond without interruption.
Susan, thank you. And I want to thank the Commission and the University of Utah for hosting this event. And Senator Harris, it's a privilege to be on the stage with you. And our nation has gone through a very challenging time this year. But I want the American people to know that from the very first day, President Donald Trump has put the health of America first. Before there were more than 5 cases in the United States, all people who had returned from China, President Donald Trump did what no other American president had ever done. And that was he suspended all travel from China, the second largest economy in the world. Now, Senator Joe Biden opposed that decision. He said it was xenophobic and hysterical.
Now, Mike Pence's rebuttal is actually based in fact. As you see Kamala Harris shaking her head, to like, no, no, no. God, receipts in Twitter is a mother. Like, most of you seen it, but I'm just going to go ahead and prop it out there real quick. Where Joe Biden said, you can see it right here. Stop the xenophobic fear mongering. Be honest, take responsibility, do your job. After the fact that Trump had already shut down the border and he called it the Chinese virus or whatever you want to call it, the Wuhan, whatever you want to call it. Called him xenophobic for it. Come on, man. The receipts is right here, man. The receipts are right here. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna digress though from this because this is getting nuts already. We're not even all the way into this video yet. So let's keep going.
But I can tell you, having led the White House Coronavirus Task Force, that decision alone by President Trump bought us invaluable time to stand up the greatest national mobilization since World War II. And I believe it saved hundreds of thousands of American lives. Because with that time, we were able to reinvent testing. More than 115 million tests have been done to date. We were able to see to the delivery of billions of supplies so our doctors and nurses had the resource and support they needed. And we began, really, before the month of February was out, to develop a vaccine and to develop medicines and therapeutics that have been saving lives all along the way. And under President Trump's leadership, Operation Warp Speed, we believe, will have literally tens of millions of doses of a vaccine before the end of this year. The reality is, when you look at the Biden plan, it reads an awful lot like what President Trump and I and our task force have been doing every step of the way. I mean, quite frankly, when I look at their plan that talks about advancing testing, creating new PPE, developing a vaccine, it looks a little bit like plagiarism, which is something Joe Biden knows a little bit about.
Mike Pence got petty. Oh, he was so petty on that one, called out plagiarism. Man, that was petty. I ain't gonna lie, that was petty. But anyway, I want to let that play a little bit before I got to the other piece of the coronavirus deaths of 210,000 people. Granted, yes, there's 210,000 people that have died from the coronavirus, right? But as we see here, as you see what I have posted here, coming out of USA Today, what was it, on April 25th, saying 1 in 3 death certificates were wrong before coronavirus. It's about to get even worse. That's a problem. Out of those 210 people that have died and they've had coronavirus to, how many of them are actually coronavirus? Really think about that a second. Is that number inflated? It very well could be. Could be on purpose. We don't know for sure, but it's something to think about. We got 1 in 3 death certificates were wrong, right? 33% of all death certificates are wrong, right? So if we applied that same thing to the coronavirus, we would have well under 100,000 if 1 in 3 are incorrect. And that's just going off that baseline, right? So that 210,000 number is inflated. It's inflated. We're just going to call it what it is. I personally think it's inflated just based off of this logic. 1 in 3 are incorrect, which is very true. I've looked into it myself. And 1 in 3 is about normal, which is scary, you know, in some cases, especially if the person died of, you know, of something else, a cancer or something else, and they tagged it corona. We've even seen the stories in the media where people were improperly tagged with COVID. We've seen it. So that 1 in 3 number is very valid. If not, maybe 1 in 4, 1 in 5. So are there 210,000 deaths for coronavirus? Meh. Who knows? Who knows for sure, right? Because we're not doing the autopsies and we're not the doctors either. But I kind of lean into kind of what Jessica Priest wrote in the USA Today. I mean, that's a lot. The other thing we need to think about too, out of that 210,000, if they want to use that number holistically, we look here and you can see the numbers for yourself. New York, 32,850 corona deaths out of 473 cases. The highest, they have more coronavirus deaths than Texas and California combined. Or close, right? It's very close. You can see it's very close. So what happened in New York? Did they mistag people on death certificates for COVID or what? I mean, we heard the stories about Cuomo putting people in the nursing homes that were corona positive. We heard de Blasio sending COVID positive patients to the Mercy, right? But these people still want to vault Donald Trump for all these coronavirus deaths. I don't know. A lot of leadership has a lot to answer for this. A lot of leadership has something to answer. Let's finish some more of this video here real quick, y'all.
Senator Harris, would you like to respond?
Absolutely. Whatever the vice president is claiming the administration has done, clearly it hasn't worked. When you're looking at over 210,000 dead bodies in our country, American lives that have been lost, families that are grieving that loss. And the vice president is the head of the task force and knew on January 28th how serious this was. And then thanks to Bob Woodward, we learned that they knew about it. And then when that was exposed, the vice president said, when asked, well, why didn't y'all tell anybody? He said, because the president wanted people to remain calm.
This is my personal opinion on this here. Personally, I am glad Trump didn't completely alert the people, right? Because you have to think of the climate that we're in right now as a society, right? We're a bunch of alarmists. We're a bunch of emotional people. And sometimes the sign of a good leader is being able to recognize certain things, right? And like in this case, with our society being emotionally charged, politically charged, and he also didn't know much about the virus, as Kamala Harris claims that they knew everything, when the intelligence briefings even said, we know it's spreading, but they don't know the lethality of this virus. So, he was right to step back and be like, hey, you know what? We need to be calm about this. We need to make sure people, are kosher and just let them know, hey, this is what's happening in Wuhan. This is what's happening. We have a couple cases here. We're on top of it. That's kind of what he did instead of alarming the masses, because imagine what would have happened if the masses would have been alarmed. I mean, we've seen this many times. When you alarm the masses, it's over. I mean, think about the Ebola outbreak, right? The Ebola outbreak created so much chaos in Africa at that time. It was ridiculous, but they're not going to tell you that. You can go look it up. You can look up Ebola crisis in Africa or something to those origins, and you'll see pictures of people like being hysterical and videos on YouTube of people in Africa being hysterical because of the mortality rate of the Ebola virus. So that's my personal opinion. Let me know if you think something different. Let's get back to the video.
Let's give Vice President Pence a chance to respond. Vice President Pence, you have 1 minute to respond.
There's not a day gone by that I haven't thought of every American family that's lost a loved one. And I want all of you to know that you'll always be in our hearts and in our prayers. But when you say what the American people have done over these last 8 months hasn't worked, That's a great disservice to the sacrifices the American people have made.
I'm referring
The
to
reality,
the
if I may finish, Senator, the reality is Dr. Fauci said everything that he told the president in the Oval Office, the president told the American people.
Are these people for real? Is Kamala Harris for real here? Hindsight is 2020, isn't it? Still back then, no one knew how dangerous this virus was. We really didn't know how dangerous this virus was until it hit Italy. And this was like late March, early April. We had no clue. So this is a disingenuous.
Now, President Trump, I will tell you, has boundless confidence in the American people, and he always spoke with confidence that we'd get through this together. But when you say it hasn't worked, when Dr. Fauci and Dr. Birx and our medical experts came to us in the second week of March, they said if the president didn't take the unprecedented step of shutting down roughly half of the American economy, that we could lose 2.2 million Americans. Now, that's the reality.
Thank you.
All right, fam. This is another disingenuous attempt by Kamala Harris to discredit the Trump administration and the information they had. And they're again trying to use hindsight or talking points to undermine what happened during this period of time. I mean, even Dr. Fauci came out and said that President Trump had basically said everything that him and Dr. Birx had been telling him. I mean, we got the receipts. You know how we do. We got the receipts. Politico wrote the article, right? Fauci denies hearing Trump distort facts on coronavirus. And one specific part right here, the all of a sudden angry white supremacist reporter, John Roberts from Fox News, when Fauci was talking to him, you can read it here for yourself. Fauci's denied that he ever heard the president distort the threat of the coronavirus and maintained that Trump's presentations to the public were largely in line with discussions he had with medical experts. When asked whether he felt Trump was downplaying the severity of the coronavirus, Fauci said no. So this even goes back to what we had talked about before with with the whole virus bit and the downplay, and this kind of counters what Bob Woodward said, right? He said, oh, he knew and he was just going to play it down. Fauci just confirmed that he did not play it down. So, I mean, are we going to get the facts straight in all of this or what? Let's continue watching the video for some more debauchery and skullduggery going on here.
They also said to us if we did everything right, Susan, we could still lose more than 200,000 Americans.
Vice President
Now, one
Pence,
life lost is too many, Susan, but the American people, I believe, deserve credit for the sacrifices that they have made, putting the health of their family and their neighbors first, our doctors, our nurses, our first responders.
Thank you, Vice President Pence.
And I'm going to speak up on behalf of what the American people have done.
Vice President Pence, you were in the front row in a Rose Garden event 11 days ago at what seems to have been a super spreader event for senior administration and congressional officials. No social distancing, few masks, and now a cluster of coronavirus cases among those who were there. How can you expect Americans to follow the administration's safety guidelines to protect themselves from COVID when you at the White House have not been doing so?
Well, the American people have demonstrated over the last 8 months that when given the facts, they're willing to put the health of their families and their neighbors and people they don't even know first. And President Trump and I have great confidence in the American people and their ability to take that information and put it into practice. In the height of the epidemic, when we were losing a heartbreaking number of 2,500 Americans a day, we surged resources to New Jersey and New York and New Orleans and Detroit. We told the American people what needed to be done, and the American people made the sacrifices. When the outbreak in the Sun Belt happened this summer, again, Americans stepped forward. But the reality is the work of the President of the United States goes on. A vacancy on the Supreme Court of the United States has come upon us, and the President introduced Judge Amy Coney Barrett.
Thank you, Vice President
At that, if I may say, that Rose Garden event, there's been a great deal of speculation about it. My wife Karen and I were there and honored to be there. Many of the people who were at that event, Susan, actually were tested for coronavirus. And it was an outdoor event, which all of our scientists regularly and routinely advise. The difference here is President Trump and I trust the American people to make choices in the best interest of their health. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris consistently talk about mandates, and not just mandates with the coronavirus, but a government takeover of health care,
Thank you,
the
Vice
Green New
President
Deal, all government control. We're about freedom and respecting the freedom of the American people.
Let's talk about respecting the American people. You respect the American people when you tell them the truth. You respect the American people when you have the courage
Which we've
to be a
always
leader
done.
speaking of those things that you may not want people to hear, but they need to hear so they can protect themselves. But this administration stood on information that if you had as a parent, if you had as a worker, knowing you didn't have enough money saved up, and now you're standing in a food line because of the ineptitude of an administration that was unwilling to speak the truth to the American people. So let's talk about caring about the American people. The American people have had to sacrifice far too much because of the incompetence of this administration. It is asking too much of the people.
Susan, we talked
No,
about
Vice
It is
President,
asking too much of the people.
Look-
That they would not be equipped with the information they need to help themselves to protect
Susan,
their
the
parents
President-
and
No,
their
I'm
children.
sorry. Kamala Harris.
All right, fam. Here's another one of those that I want to throw a fact check on and all this good stuff, because we see Kamala Harris over here shaking her head like, no, that's not true. That's not true. And we're going to obviously what we've been doing the whole time is bringing receipts. We bring receipts when we look up this stuff. And this is something everybody can do. You know, I shouldn't be the only one doing this. You know, everyone should do this. But the Cato Institute actually, out of all places, actually got this part right. The model that was given by Dr. Fauci and Dr. Birx was that there will only be 2.2 million people that would die, right? I mean, we see it right here. A month later, you know, and we're talking March. March is when this went down. The 2.2 million estimate was still being used without revealing the source by Trump and Dr. Fauci and Dr. Birx to imply that up to 2 million lives have been saved by state lockdowns, business closings, and other federal travel bans, right? And we look at the summary of the Ferguson Imperial College report that provides clues about how the model came to be generated. They say it's unlikely absence of any control measures or spontaneous changes in individual behavior would expect a peak in mortality to occur after approximately 3 months in such a scenario, given estimate our ratio of 2.4. We predict 81% of the GB and Great Britain, U.S. populations would be infected over the course of the epidemic. In total, in an unmitigated epidemic, we would predict approximately 510,000 deaths in Great Britain and 2.2 million in the U.S., not accounting for the potential negative effects of health systems being overran by mortality. So again, there's a receipt for you that you can use when people talk about, you know, Trump lied about the severity of this. And, you know, again, Fauci, as we've seen in the one clip I did prior, that Trump didn't downplay this, and he gave the information out to the public that Dr. Fauci and Dr. Birx had. So, you know, I don't know why they keep going there with this, but they do. But let's keep going. Let's keep watching the rest of this part of this debate. All right, so obviously, this is going to be the end of this segment on just the COVID-19 stuff. I have a lot more coming, but I want to comment that Kamala Harris doubled down on everything she said in that segment. And you've seen the clips when I brought the receipts, showed you the receipts, that one, she's being disingenuous and mixed in her answers. And number two, some of her rebuttal is nothing but using hindsight as a weapon, right? We know this, you know this, the American people know this. And the other thing I took away from this segment also, and I hope a lot of you heard it and it resonates with you is that he trusts the American people. Give us the options. Give us the option to do as we please with the information. And yes, they were forthcoming with the information that they had coming from Dr. Birx and Dr. Fauci and the NIH and the CDC on this. They didn't have no more knowledge than we had then at that point in time. And as we seen, Fauci obviously relayed the information, and he said basically no lies detected, right? So take that as you will. Do me a favor, share this video with your mates and friends. Subscribe to so make sure you're following the Facebook or the YouTube wherever you're watching it. And I have the next segment of this debate coming up here real soon. I appreciate you guys.